the story of Abram. So Abram is essentially, we are all descendants of Abram. He's our great 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 grandfather, whatever, right? Somewhere along that line. Abram's story is interesting because his story is all of our stories essentially, and here's why. So Abram and his wife Sarai, they went down to Egypt, and when they went to Egypt, Abram realized that his wife Sarai was like gorgeous or something, right? She was going to be highly sought after. And Abram was worried for his own life because he thought that the men there would have killed him so that they could have taken Sarai as their own wife. And so he said, "Hey, Sarai, just tell everybody that you're my sister because if you're my wife, they know that they'll kill me, they'll take you. You know, there you go." But what had happened was, is Pharaoh did find favor in Sarai's wife, and he took her as his own wife. God looked down at this and said, "Hey, that's not cool." So he sent a bunch of plagues upon Egypt. And eventually the Pharaoh caught on, like, "Hey, like, why is this happening?" And he found out that Sarai was Abram's wife. He went to Abram and said, why didn't you tell me this? And he sent them away. He didn't kill them. He wasn't mad where I'm gonna like take revenge on you and kill you. He was like, just go away. We don't want anything to do with this. And so Abram and Sarai left and went about their business. So far, Abram has completely given up his duties as a man and a husband. He's disregarded the law of God because God says one man, one woman, not one man, one woman, and a bunch of other dudes too, right? Like it doesn't work that way. And who knows what Abram was doing this during this time, right? Because his wife was the wife of Pharaoh. But anyway, moving on the story, God told Abram that he is going to have all these descendants, right? Again, that's us. And at a certain point in his life, Abram was like, I don't have any kids. And so he and Sarai are trying to have kids. And it's just not happening. At this point, I think, they're getting up there in years. I think it was like 70 at this point. I don't know. I can't remember those details. But Sarai has a servant named Hagar. I can't remember. Sorry. I'm not sorry, you Bible scholars. Probably get mad at me. But Sarai says, "Hey, I'm clearly not able to have kids. Like, I'm barren. This isn't happening. If we want to have kids, why don't you sleep with my servant and then we'll have a kid that way?" So that's what happens. Abram sleeps with the servant. She gets pregnant. And you would think that they would be happy, right? But that's not the case. The servant starts to resent Sarai because now she's like, "Why am I serving you? I'm carrying his child. Like he should be probably, I should be replace you essentially." And things went awry. So Hagar went away. She left and was like, "Screw this, I'm out." Well, God came to her and said, "Hey, this is, you're going to have this child, and this child's going to be a wild person, but you have this duty." So she goes back, and they have a kid, but Sarai and Abram raise this kiddo as their own. And this is we're all descendants from this bloodline. But what happens next is God says, "Hey, you've completely screwed up everything I've told you to do. You've started down the path, but then you decided to go down your own way, and it's only led to turmoil." And that's the story of our lives, right? Like, I think there are, what is it? The sayings like the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, I think there are a lot of times where maybe I've started to do something that maybe I felt convicted of, or I thought was a good idea, and just said like, "Hey, if I do this, like that's gonna be great." But at a certain point, I started to veer off the path, and instead of listening to what I knew I was supposed to do, I just started to do what I wanted to do, where I thought was right, even though I knew it was against what God said was right. And so it leads to like this path of death and destruction, right? But here's the cool part: is God comes back to Abram and says, "Dude, what are you doing? Like you're screwing everything up. I told you I was going to take care of you, and I meant it. Like I told you I was going to give you a child." So what happens is that Abram is sitting there one day, and he looks up and he sees three men coming, and one of them is God. God comes to him and says, "Hey, didn't I tell you that I was going to give you a child?" He's like, yeah, but we're old now. At this point, he's like 100, and Sarai is like 90. And God again says, listen, this time next year, you're going to have a baby. And Sarai is laughing. And God's like, why are you laughing? And then Sarai says, well, I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing. So she lied straight to God's face. So that's not good. But nonetheless, Sarai indeed gets pregnant. Again, I think she's 90 at this point. And um, God says, hey, from here on out, you are no longer Abram. And Sarai, you are no longer Sarai. You're going to be known as Abraham and Sarah. And so now Abraham and Sarah, they are our ancestors. Um, the Bible then leads into the story of how Abraham and then his nephew Lot, they split land. Sodom and Gomorrah comes into play. But God basically has taken somebody who was a repeated sinner, speaking directly to God and still disobeying his will, and it has used him to bless all the nations. Again, we are only here because eventually Abram, now Abraham, listened, he repented, and he was redeemed to be used for the glory of God. So that is all of our stories. I'm realizing this is a long video. So if you stuck with me, good on you. The end of this story is that, so I guess the 30,000 foot view is Abram was a sinner just like any one of us. He was charged by God to do something great, and he fell short repeatedly, time and time again. But God, that's like the best part of the Bible is, but God came in and said, no, I will use you. All you have to do is listen to me. And then he finally listened, and then look at where we are today. All good things come through God. All we have to do is listen and take action. All right. We'll see y'all soon.